Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something pretty relevant, I think, to a lot of us.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about mental health,
Okay.
specifically in South Yorkshire.
Interesting.
And we've got some sources here about how South Yorkshire is tackling these mental health challenges with, I think, a pretty cool combination of podcasts and tech. And we're going to be looking at how these solutions are being used specifically for young people and those just starting out in their careers.
Yeah, it's definitely a really important topic.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that South Yorkshire is being so proactive in addressing these issues.
Definitely. So before we jump into the solutions themselves, can you give us a little bit of context about the mental health picture in South Yorkshire?
So you're right to point out those groups, young people and early career professionals. They are facing some unique challenges in this area.
Okay.
Heightened anxiety, depression, workplace stress.
It's a lot.
And then you add in the current economic climate.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so much uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
And for young people and those trying to sort of enter the workforce,
Right.
it can be incredibly daunting.
Totally. And we can't forget about the massive shift we've seen towards hybrid work models.
Absolutely.
I imagine that's adding its own
Oh, yeah.
unique pressures to the mix.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this blurring of the lines between work life and personal life, which can be really difficult to navigate for anyone.
Especially when you're just starting out.
Especially when you're early in your career,
Yeah, so you've got the economic worries and the changing nature of work, and you're trying to figure out who you are and where you fit in.
Yeah, it's a lot to handle.
A lot.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do this podcast series and B-Spatial fit into all of this?
Well, so the podcast itself, it's called Mind Matters.
Okay.
And it's designed to provide age-specific mental health education.
Okay, so it's tailored to these specific groups that we've been talking about.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So think practical tips and advice, real-life stories that are tailored to the challenges these groups are facing.
Okay, so it's kind of like a mental health toolkit.
Yeah.
Delivered straight to your ears.
That's a great way to put it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's the podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm really intrigued by this B-Spatial thing.
Right.
It sounds like it's more than just a listening experience.
It is, yeah.
So tell me about that.
So the really interesting thing about B-Spatial is that it goes beyond passive learning.
Okay.
So local authorities can actually integrate it into their existing programs.
Okay.
So things like youth mentoring, workplace wellness initiatives, even school curriculums.
Gotcha.
And they've made it engaging by incorporating gamification.
So when you say gamification, what exactly does that look like?
Okay, so instead of just reading about coping mechanisms, you're actually applying them in like a simulated environment. Or you're working towards achieving goals and earning rewards for practicing mindfulness techniques.
Interesting. So it's like taking those abstract concepts and making them tangible.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it takes the seriousness out of the topic a little bit.
I think so.
Without diminishing its importance.
Yeah, definitely.
And what I find really interesting is that B-Spatial also gathers data.
It does.
So tell me more about this data.
It's all anonymized.
Okay, good.
But it gives local authorities these really unique insights into the mental health trends.
Within their communities.
Yeah.
So it's like having this real-time pulse on the well-being of the region.
Yeah, you could say that.
So what kind of information are we talking about here?
So it's kind of like a feedback loop.
Okay.
As users engage with the platform, they provide data on things like their stress levels, coping mechanisms,
Interesting.
and their overall sense of well-being. And this is all aggregated and analyzed to reveal patterns and trends.
So you might see a spike in anxiety among young people.
Exactly.
In a particular area.
Or identify a need for more support services.
Okay.
For early career professionals in a certain industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's not just about individual progress.
Right.
It's about using this information to make data-driven decisions.
Absolutely.
About resource allocation and planning interventions.
Yes.
So this approach that they're using in South Yorkshire, it's education through the podcast, engagement through gamification on B-Spatial, and then using that data to take informed action.
That's right.
It's really interesting.
It is.
But I'm curious to see what this actually looks like in practice.
Okay, well, let's take Barnsley Council as an example.
Okay.
So imagine they decide to promote the Mind Matters podcast to schools and apprenticeships across the borough.
Makes sense.
They encourage young people to tune in and learn about managing stress, building resilience, seeking help when needed.
Okay, so the podcast lays the foundation.
Yes.
And then B-Spatial comes in.
Exactly.
To help build on those learnings and put them into practice.
Yeah, so young people could use B-Spatial to complete challenges related to the podcast content.
Okay.
So, interactive exercises, journal prompts, mindfulness techniques.
So they're actively engaging with the material.
Exactly, and putting those lessons into practice.
What about the data?
Okay, so imagine. The data collected through B-Spatial shows an increase in feelings of loneliness among 15 to 18-year-olds in Barnsley.
And then the council can use that information to take action.
Exactly.
What would that look like?
Well, they could invest in peer support groups, after-school social clubs, or community outreach programs.
To try to combat that loneliness.
Yes.
Okay.
So the data provides the evidence they need to justify those investments.
So Barnsley is just one example of how this approach can work.
Yeah.
But I imagine the beauty of this model is its adaptability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What works in Barnsley might need to be adjusted for Sheffield.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right. So each community across South Yorkshire, Sheffield, Rotherham, Doncaster, they can all benefit from this.
They can.
But it needs to be tailored to their specific needs.
It does.
Yeah. So South Yorkshire is using technology and community action to address mental health.
Right.
It's pretty inspiring.
It is.
But I'm curious, what does this actually mean for the individuals involved?
Well, one of the most exciting things is the potential for early intervention.
Okay.
By reaching young people and early career professionals before mental health issues escalate.
We can help them build resilience.
Exactly.
And give them the tools to deal with these challenges.
Yeah, think of it like building a strong foundation for mental well-being.
I love that.
Yeah, and, we're promoting mental health literacy early on and providing support through platforms like B-Spatial. And ultimately, we're empowering these individuals to take charge of their own mental health.
And that's key.
It is.
It's not just about fixing problems after they occur.
Right.
It's about creating a culture where mental well-being is prioritized.
Yes.
From the start.
And that can have a ripple effect throughout the whole community.
Right. Healthy individuals make a healthy community.
Absolutely.
And a healthy community makes healthy society.
That's right.
It's amazing to think that a podcast and a digital platform can have such a big impact.
It is pretty amazing.
On an entire region.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the role of technology in all of this?
I think it really highlights the potential of technology to be a force for good. But it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how it's used.
Right. Using it responsibly and ethically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And South Yorkshire is demonstrating that.
Yeah, they're showing that you can leverage these tools to connect with people, to provide support, and to create a more data-driven approach to mental health.
Right. And that's something other regions can learn from.
It's a really great model.
It is.
So it's about combining these innovative tools with the genuine commitment to improving well-being.
Yes, definitely.
And the benefits go beyond individual well-being.
They do.
A healthier workforce is a more productive workforce.
Absolutely.
So by investing in the mental health of its residents, South Yorkshire is also investing in its future economic prosperity.
That's a good point.
It's like a win-win.
It is.
So we're talking about a virtuous cycle here. Where individual well-being contributes to community strength and economic vitality.
I like that.
It's a pretty cool vision for the future.
It is, but there's another angle to this.
Oh, is there?
That I think is worth exploring.
Okay, I'm all ears.
We've been talking about the impact on individuals and the community, but what about the long-term implications?
Oh, that's a good question.
How does South Yorkshire plan to evolve this initiative and ensure its sustainability?
That's a big one.
It is.
And I think that's something that we need to delve into a bit deeper.
Yeah. I agree.
But you know what? Why don't we take a quick break?
Okay.
And we'll come back and explore those long-term implications.
Sounds good.
In our final segment.
All right.
Stay with us. So we were talking about how South Yorkshire is really trying to get ahead of the curve when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
But you brought up this question of sustainability.
Right.
Like, how do they plan to keep this going?
It's crucial.
Yeah.
Any initiative that wants to make a real impact.
Especially with something as complex as mental health.
Especially with mental health.
So how are they thinking about that long term?
Well, it seems like they're already kind of thinking ahead.
Okay. So
One thing is this focus on continuous improvement.
So they're not just setting up these programs and walking away.
No, they're constantly gathering feedback, analyzing data, and looking for ways to refine their approach.
So it's like this evolving thing.
Yeah, it's a process.
Which makes sense.
Mental health needs are always changing.
Yeah, so what are some specific ways they're doing this?
Well, they're trying to personalize things even further.
Yeah. How so?
Remember all that data B-Spatial is gathering? They're looking at how to use that data to tailor recommendations to individual users.
So it's like having this virtual mental health coach.
Yeah, kind of.
That adapts to you.
Right.
That's amazing.
It is. They're also expanding their partnerships, working with universities to do research.
Cool.
Develop new interventions.
So bringing in the experts.
Yeah, and they're reaching out to businesses too.
Oh, interesting to see how they can support employees.
Exactly.
So it's like this whole ecosystem.
Yeah, a really collaborative approach.
I like that.
And it's exciting.
It is.
To see this level of commitment.
Yeah, it feels like they're setting a new standard.
I think so.
For how we think about mental health care.
Moving beyond just reacting to crises.
Right, and focusing on prevention.
Exactly.
That's a huge shift.
It is.
But, we have to acknowledge that there are challenges.
Of course.
There are always bumps along the way.
Every initiative faces challenges.
So what have they learned from those?
One big thing is digital equity.
Making sure everyone has access.
Not everyone has reliable internet.
Right.
Or the skills to navigate technology.
So how are they tackling that?
They're setting up computer labs in community centers, offering training workshops.
It's making it accessible.
And even exploring alternative ways to deliver content.
Like what?
Text messages
or
printed materials.
Wow, so they're really trying to reach everyone.
They are.
That's great.
And they're also really aware of data privacy.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Making sure all that B-Spatial data is anonymized.
Super important.
They know they have to maintain people's trust.
Absolutely.
And then there's the funding issue.
Of course.
These programs need money to keep going. Yeah. Long-term funding can be tricky.
It's always a challenge.
But they're exploring different models.
Like what?
Government grants, partnerships with businesses.
Makes sense.
And they're really focusing on showing the impact of these programs.
So not just asking for money.
Right. They're proving that this is an investment.
That's a smart approach.
It is.
So we've talked about sustainability.
Yeah.
The challenges. And the lessons they've learned.
What are the big takeaways?
Yeah, what can we all learn from South Yorkshire?
I think that deserves its own conversation.
You're right.
It's about more than just programs.
It's about changing how we think about mental health.
It's about collaboration.
Yeah.
Innovation. A commitment to well-being.
This has been really insightful.
It has.
I'm feeling really inspired.
It's exciting to see these kinds of initiatives.
So let's take a quick break.
I know.
And when we come back, we'll explore those bigger picture takeaways.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. So we've seen what South Yorkshire is doing. And it's really impressive.
It is.
But what are the bigger lessons here?
Yeah, what can the rest of the world learn from this?
Exactly.
I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of a proactive approach.
Okay.
We've been so focused on reacting to mental health crises.
Right, dealing with problems after they arise.
Yeah, instead of trying to prevent them in the first place.
So you're saying we need a more holistic view?
I think so.
Okay.
South Yorkshire is showing that we can build a culture where mental health is just as important as physical health.
I like that.
It's about giving people the tools they need to thrive.
And creating communities that support well-being.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a blueprint.
Yeah, you could say that.
For a mentally healthier society.
And it's a blueprint that can be adapted to different places.
Okay, so what are the key elements of this blueprint?
Well, one of the most important is collaboration.
We've talked about that.
Yeah. South Yorkshire has brought together so many different groups.
Local authorities.
Healthcare providers.
Educators.
Community organizations.
Even businesses.
Yeah, everyone's working together.
That's awesome.
It's essential for tackling something as complex as mental health.
Makes sense.
And then there's the innovation piece.
Using technology and data in smart ways.
Right. They're making it more engaging.
And more personalized.
Exactly.
And they're not afraid to experiment.
No, they're constantly trying new things.
Which is so important.
It is. Mental health is not a static thing.
Things are always changing.
So we have to keep adapting.
You know, this whole conversation has been really inspiring.
I think so, too.
It gives me hope.
Me too.
Knowing that there are communities out there.
Yeah.
That are actively working to make a difference.
It's pretty amazing.
But it's not just about copying what South Yorkshire is doing.
No, every community is different.
So we have to adapt.
Innovate.
Based on our own needs and resources.
Exact.
But those core principles,
collaboration,
convention, data-driven decision-making,
those are universal.
And we can all learn from that.
We can.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
And I think the main takeaway for me is that this is about more than just programs or technology.
It's about a fundamental shift.
Yeah, in how we think about mental health.
As individuals.
As communities.
As a society.
And I hope that our listeners will walk away from this feeling empowered.
I hope so too.
To champion mental well-being in their own lives.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Right. It can be as simple as checking in on a friend.
Or taking care of your own mental health.
Absolutely.
And every little bit helps.
So that's it for our deep dive into South Yorkshire.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, stay curious.
And keep exploring.
And remember,
building
a better future starts with taking care of ourselves and each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.